If you own, rent, or invest in Florida real estate, we need you to hear this number and you need to watch this entire video. 310,000. That's how many Americans moved to Florida in a single year. The Census Bureau just confirmed that number collapsed to 22,000. Florida now ranks behind Alabama for domestic migration. Alabama. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking Alabama. I've been there many times. I stayed in Orange Beach and Gulf Shores, went to the Hangout and the Pink Pony. Great places, great food. Love Alabama. And homeowners in places like Cape Coral and Punta Gorda have lost over $100,000 in equity since the peak. Foreclosure rates just hit the highest in the nation. And even though Florida Realtors says the market is stabilizing, homes in some of these cities are sitting unsold for over 100 days, with sellers cutting prices just to get an offer. This correction is not hitting Florida equally. Some cities are quietly recovering. Others are still bleeding value right now. And the data is pointing to 10 specific markets where every major indicator, prices, inventory, and foreclosures, is moving in the wrong direction at once. We've got the numbers from Redfin, Zillow, the Census Bureau, and Florida Realtors to prove it. The city we're saving for last has the worst outlook of any metro in the entire country, and most people have never even heard of it. Before we get into the list, you need to understand what's actually driving this, because it's not just one thing, it's four forces hitting Florida at the same time. First, the migration engine that powered the entire boom has stalled. We went from 310,000 net domestic migrants in 2022 to 183,000 in 23 to 22,000 in 2025. That's not a slowdown, that's a shutdown. Second, insurance. Florida homeowners are still paying 2 to 3 times the national average. The state says premiums are stabilizing, and that's technically true. Rate hikes dropped from 21% in 2023 to basically zero in 2025. But the damage is already done. Average premiums are still sitting between $4,000 to $6,000 a year. In coastal areas, much higher. And 20% of Florida homeowners have simply dropped their coverage entirely because they can't afford it. Third, inventory. Florida now holds over 15% of all active listings in the country. 8 metros hit record high inventory in 2025. And fourth, foreclosures. Florida leads the nation. Tampa has the worst foreclosure rate of any major metro in America. Now, let's get into the cities. We're starting with the least severe and building to the worst. City number 1, Orlando. Orlando's correction has been quieter than most of the state, but the warning signs are there. The median home price came in around $380,000 in December 2025. That's roughly flat year over year, but Zillow's home value index for the metro shows a decline of about 4% from the mid-2025 peak. What's more telling is what's happening beneath the surface. Homes are sitting on the market for an average of 78 days, up from 58 a year ago. And at one point in 2025, the metro had nearly 8 months of housing supply. That's well into buyer's market territory. Orlando isn't in freefall, but if you bought at the top in 2024 and need to sell now, you're negotiating from a much weaker position than you were a year ago. City number 2, Jacksonville. Jacksonville was supposed to be the affordable alternative, and it was until prices ran up too fast. The median sale price is around $282,000 according to Redfin, down about 4.4% year over year. Homes are taking 85 days to sell. But the bigger story is the cost of owning. Redfin data shows property taxes in Jacksonville surged nearly 60% since 2019. That's an extra $84 a month that most buyers didn't plan for. Layer on insurance premiums, and the total cost of ownership is pushing working families out. Jacksonville also ranks among the top metros nationally for foreclosure filings, and Realtor.com is projecting another 1.4% price decline through 2026. Not catastrophic, but the direction is clear. City number 3, Ocala. This one might surprise you. Ocala was named the #1 U-Haul growth city in America for the 3rd time in 4 years. People are still moving here, mostly retirees from Miami and Orlando looking for cheaper housing. But look closer at the data. Homes that were selling in 37 days a year ago are now sitting for 73 days. Inventory surged over 66% year over year. And while Redfin shows prices up 4%, Zillow's home value index shows a slight decline, which tells you the gains are concentrated in certain neighborhoods while others are quietly softening. Ocala isn't crashing, but the gap between the headline story, fastest growing city in America, and what sellers are actually experiencing on the ground is getting wider, and that gap is where people lose money. City number 4, Port St. Lucie. Port St. Lucie became the go-to destination for people fleeing South Florida prices. The problem is, it's not affordable anymore either. The median home sits around $400,000, and in a city where the median household income is roughly $78,000, the math ain't mathin'. Inventory has hit record levels. Homes are sitting for over 86 days, and prices are trending down about 2% year over year. The city is also one of the highest in the state for expected new listings relative to housing stock, meaning more supply is about to hit an already saturated market. Port St. Lucie's appeal was always the value gap between here and Miami or West Palm. But when insurance, taxes, and commute times are factored in, that gap has narrowed to the point where buyers are starting to ask, why am I paying this much to live here? City number 5, Lakeland. Here's a stat that should stop you cold. Lakeland had the highest foreclosure rate among mid-sized metros in the entire country in 2024. Not Florida, the entire country. Roughly 1 in every 172 housing units had a foreclosure filing. Lakeland got popular as the cheap option between Tampa and Orlando, but cheap attracted speculators. Investors piled in during the boom, bought properties to flip or rent, and now many of those bets aren't paying off. Rental demand has softened. Flipping margins have compressed, and homeowners who bought at a peak are discovering that a 2-hour daily commute to Tampa doesn't feel like such a bargain anymore. Prices are roughly flat, hovering around $308,000 to $320,000. But the foreclosure pressure combined with rising inventory means downward movement is likely. Lakeland is a city where the crisis isn't showing up in prices yet, it's showing up in distress. Quick pause. If you're watching this and you own property in any of these cities, drop a comment telling us what you're seeing on the ground. Are homes sitting? Are neighbors selling at a loss? Those real-world data points help everyone in this community make better decisions. And if this analysis is giving you value, subscribe for weekly breakdowns like this. Data first, no hype. City number 6, Fort Myers. Fort Myers was ground zero for Hurricane Ian in 2022, and the market still hasn't recovered. The median home price is around $385,000, but that masks enormous variation. Downtown Fort Myers has seen prices drop nearly 14% from peak. Homes are selling in about 43 days on the surface, but that number is skewed by new construction. Resale homes are taking significantly longer. The insurance situation here is among the worst in the state. Average premiums in the Cape Coral Fort Myers metro are estimated at over $8,600 per year. That's more than most people's monthly mortgage payment. And with FEMA's Risk Rating 2.0 pushing flood insurance higher every year, the total cost of owning a home in Fort Myers continues to climb even as the value drops. Builders are still delivering new supply into this market, which is putting even more pressure on resale prices. Some smaller builders have actually resorted to short sales, selling homes below their own loan balances just to get out. City number 7, North Port-Sarasota. Here's a name you need to remember. Realtor.com identified the North Port-Bradenton-Sarasota metro as having the largest year-over-year decline in home values among all major U.S. metros, not just Florida, nationally. North Port specifically is showing a Zillow decline of 9.3% year-over-year. Homes are sitting on the market for over 100 days. In Sarasota County, the condo market is in outright distress. Prices on townhomes and condos dropped by double digits in mid-2025. And inventory reached over 8 months of supply. The single-family side has held up better, with median prices in Sarasota County around $457,000, but that's still down 6.6% year over year. And the broader trend here is driven by the same forces hitting all of Southwest Florida: insurance costs, hurricane exposure, and an oversupply of pandemic-era inventory that sellers can't move at the prices they paid. Realtor.com is forecasting another 8.9% decline in Northport through 2026. City number 8, Miami. Miami's headline numbers have always been inflated by luxury sales, international cash buyers, and a condo market that plays by its own rules. But strip those away, and here's what you see. The city of Miami's median home price dropped over 10% year over year, according to Redfin's December 2025 data. Homes are sitting on the market for 110 days. And in the condo market, it's much worse. Miami-Dade had 14 months of condo inventory. There were 251% more condo sellers than buyers in August 2025. Let that number sink in. For every one buyer, there are 3.5 sellers. The post-Surfside safety regulations are forcing older condo buildings into expensive structural inspections and reserve funding. HOA fees have exploded. Fannie Mae has blacklisted many older buildings from loan backing. And some top-tier Miami condos that were trading at $1.39 million in 2022 are now pending at $950,000. That's a 32% decline. Only 14% of renter households in Miami can actually afford to buy. The income needed to afford a single-family home here is $168,000. The average dual-earner household makes $115,000. The math is broken. City number 9, Tampa. Tampa has the worst foreclosure rate of any major metro in America, with more than 1 million residents. 1 in every 1,373 housing units had a foreclosure filing in October 2025. But foreclosures are only part of the story. Property taxes in Tampa surged 57% since 2019, an extra $90 per month that catches new homeowners completely off guard. The Zillow Home Value Index for the metro shows a decline of about 6% year over year. And Tampa took 2 direct hurricane hits in 2 weeks during Helene and Milton in 2024, the first major strikes since 1921. Storm-damaged areas like St. Pete Beach and Treasure Island saw prices drop up to 30%. Short sales and foreclosures have doubled in Tampa Bay since early 2025, and Realtor.com projects another 3.6% decline through 2026. Tampa is still a great city, but it became one of the most overheated markets in the country, and the correction has further to run. All right, for this last one, I feel like we need a drum roll. Can I get... No? Okay, then. Let's go. City number 10, Punta Gorda. And here it is, the city we told you about at the beginning, the one most people have never heard of, with the worst outlook in the country. Punta Gorda, on Florida's southwest coast, a small retirement community that became a pandemic gold rush and is now the single biggest correction story in American real estate. Prices here have dropped 25.3% from the July 2022 peak. That's not our number. That's Zillow's Home Value Index data. 1 in every $4 of value gone. Homes are sitting on the market for 106 days, and the city has one of the highest expected listing rates in the entire country, meaning even more inventory is about to flood in. Hurricane Ian devastated this region in 2022. Insurance companies haven't forgotten. Premiums in this area have made homeownership nearly impossible for anyone on a fixed income, which is most of the population here because Punta Gorda is overwhelmingly retirees. And those retirees are now competing with the math. When your insurance costs $10,000 a year and your home value has dropped $100,000, the dream of affordable Florida retirement is over. Charlotte County, where Punta Gorda sits, saw foreclosure filings increase over 400% since early 2024. Retirees who bought at peak are underwater, and the pipeline of people who would normally replace them, that migration wave, has collapsed 93%. This city is a warning for anyone buying in Florida right now, because what happened in Punta Gorda isn't unique, it's just further along. So, there it is. 10 Florida cities showing serious warning signs heading into the rest of 2026. Orlando, Jacksonville, Ocala, Port St. Lucie, Lakeland, Fort Myers, North Port-Sarasota, Miami, Tampa, and Punta Gorda. If you own in any of these markets, run the numbers. Factor in insurance, taxes, and where your equity actually stands today, not where it was 2 years ago. And if you're thinking about buying, this is the time to be patient and precise, not emotional. Anyone who made it this far takes their financial future seriously. That's exactly who Econofin is for. Subscribe now for weekly data-driven analysis on exactly where to invest and where to avoid. And drop a comment. Which city on this list surprised you the most? Or tell us which Florida city we should break down next. Your comments shape the content. We'll see you in the next one.